3 times. I think Verhaeghe at plus 155. Again, it's not the biggest number. We've seen Carter Verhaeghe go off like plus 190 in these playoffs, but you know what? In a big game like this, I'll trust Verhaeghe to get it done. I think if you want to go a little bit further back, Sam Bennett is now centering a second line as well. He's had a couple good games in a row now, so plus 310 for Sam Bennett. Those are 2 guys I got my eye on, but like the Verhaeghe narrative here, I guess, in a big game 6.
Okay. Anything else before I ask you an RBC Canadian Open question here? Do you have any other hockey bets?
Yeah, I look, if we're talking Rangers and we're going to play the narrative, the Rangers we don't like them. Why not go under Chris Kreider points? Kreider's scored points in 1 of 5 games thus far. He's been basically invisible. Under 0.5 points for Kreider, minus 105, still the favorite. I think it's a great bet, to be honest. He really has not done much. He's only kind of gotten special teams goals like that last game. I think if Florida wins, Kreider probably stays off the score sheet again. I just like the odds on that bet quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you're just a dude who is thriving this weekend, Jeff, because you've got Edmonton doing its thing, 1 win away from another final appearance here. And then you also have your nation's Open going on north of the border. The top of the leaderboard of the RBC Canadian Open, Jeff, it is soft. So are you tossing some darts here on some guys thinking they can make a move on moving day today? Leaders are at 10 under par.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you could see some players make some movement. I actually, again, it's Canada, it's Canadian Open. I mean, I think Corey Connors at plus 2,500 is still pretty interesting.
Wow.
I mean, this is the dude who's hitting the ball so well right now, gaining 7 strokes on approach in his last 2 events. He didn't play too poorly the first 2 rounds at minus 3. He's a few shots back, but this short course, if Connors just sinks like a few putts, and I know that's something we say about him every week, but if he does it, I mean, he could literally like shoot 7 or 8 under on this course. It's so short. He's such a good ball striker, so accurate with those irons that I think Connors is definitely worth a look. Tommy Fleetwood's sitting there too at minus 3.
Of course, there it is.
Well, I mean, look, I think those are the 2 guys most likely to come out, though. I mean, look, Fleetwood, I know he never gets it done, but if you're thinking about guys on moving day, I think Connors and Fleetwood are kind of like the names that you want to target. So
we got to go to break. Thank you so much. Thank you kindly. We're back to Boston NBA Finals next.
Something amazing is happening here. AI is increasing workloads on CPUs and GPUs. But this company's laptops are more than keeping pace. That's because CDW worked with them to future-proof their laptop fleet by configuring them with devices enabled with AMD Ryzen AI. Improve performance and free up resources with AMD Ryzen and CDW. Make amazing happen. Find out more at cdw.com/AMD client.
There are any number of reasons you might consider selling your home. To move closer to family, live within a smaller budget, or just wanting a change of scenery. Whatever your reasons, having to figure out all the various housing market trends in your area may not be what you signed up for. That's where an agent who is a realtor comes in. Realtors have the expertise to help you find the right price and navigate the process to sell your home in a way that's right for you. That's who we are. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors.
Elevate your sports betting game with VSiN's exclusive betting splits. Stay ahead with real-time market trends and track.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Keyboard Cat, Hamilton the Pug, and Toast Meets World. These are some of the internet's most beloved pets. And they all have one thing in common. Their stories started in a shelter. Start your story. Adopt a dog or cat today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Training that pet to play the keyboard, that's optional. Start a story. Adopt a shelter or rescue pet today. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Allison is perfect. I mean, she'd never tell you that. She's humble and perfect. She likes everyone. She even likes her untidy roommate's weird guinea pig. Allison, wait, are you texting and driving? Allison, no. That's the exact opposite of what I was just saying about you. Why, Allison? Why? Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
We are live outside the home of Joe and Rosie Goddard, where a pretty big tickle fight broke out just minutes ago. Sources say their father instigated the laughter. Let's go inside for a comment. Apparently, they have no comment. Dads, let this be a reminder that it only takes a moment to make a moment. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
The Mahoning Valley's leader for golf, Milk Creek Golf Course, is now booking tee times for 2024. We offer stay and play opportunities available with 9 area hotel partners. For more information, visit our website at millcreekmetroparks.org. Also, look for new, exciting opportunities coming soon, including an indoor player development center with Trackman, an indoor Callaway Club Fitting Center, and an Odyssey Fitting Studio in 2024. Follow us on Facebook at Milk Creek Golf Course or call 330-740-7112.
You're listening to WRDB, Western Reserve Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, Warren, Salem, and around the world.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Western Reserve Radio is the Valley's online source for sports talk and local live events. Tune in and be a part of their live weekly shows, as well as all of the hard-hitting action of Youngstown Phantoms hockey, high school football, and the GDFL. Find them at westernreserveradio.com. Tune in and the Live 365 app to be a part of the area's sports conversation. Be sure to visit them on Facebook at Western Reserve Radio and on Twitter at WR_radio.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Hey, let me ask you something. Would you seat your 3-year-old child on a windowsill? Would you seat them beside a lit fireplace or by the deep end of a pool? One last question. Would you seat your child in a car seat that's not correct for them? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Secure their future. Seat them in the correct car seat. For more information, visit safercar.gov/the right seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's time to kick back and listen to the sports page with your host, Pat Lucia, right here on Western Reserve Radio. You can call the show at 330-707-4202 and tell everyone what's on your mind in the wonderful world of sports. Now, here's your host, Pat Lucia.
Saturday morning sports page. Back, Pat Lucia, Dave Clark, 330-707-4202. Western Reserve Radio is the station you are listening to, and it is the Saturday morning sports page. Saturday mornings from 9 to 11, Dave Clark.
Mm-hmm.
A lot going on, though, in the world of sports. There's a little bit of a lull. We haven't hit football yet.
When that hits,
not yet. We're getting there. We got the NBA to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
The TV deal, the NBA TV deal is still kind of cooking out there. Charles Barkley making the rounds saying, in essence, hey, TNT, you guys screwed this up. But it's still not totally off the table. TNT could still get the deal done. They're now competing against NBC. And ESPN and Amazon also are getting part of this deal. So it's going to be three tier, I guess, or three parties involved, I guess, if I want to put it that way. Amazon, ESPN, Disney, and then NBC or TNT, depending on all this washes out.
Right. And hopefully, I just think for the NBA's sake, that they do, even if NBC is involved, ESPN, who has been involved anyway, if they allow them to, they pick up some deals there. But TNT needs to be a part of this. They don't need to lose that inside the NBA. Major, I'm talking about drastic. I think ratings will go down until playoffs hit. Playoffs is playoffs. But until that time, sometimes during the season when we had those laws, they watch the NBA because of inside the NBA.
They do.
Because the stuff is so hilarious. It's hilarious, but it's comedy, but real informative. They got, I mean, it's not like they don't know what they're talking about. They're telling you good stuff, finding out things. It's a great show.
Yeah, it is. Shaq and Charles. And Kenny Smith.
You can't break up Shaq and Charles.
No.
And you need Kenny.
You need Kenny's kind of the
mediator type. And sometimes he jumps on one or the other side too. That cracks me up too.
I think Kenny kind of keeps it down the center of the logic.
Mm-hmm.
Charles will go off and Shaq will go off, and then Kenny brings them kind of back to more of the center part of the discussion, which is great.
Yep.
The interaction. And then what's his name? Ernie
Johnson is
Johnson's great because he will interject, and he's kind of he and Kenny are kind of the leveling voices, and the other two are kind of funny because they're entertaining,
right?
But then Kenny will kind of bring them back.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Ernie will do it, but they've got a lot of great interaction.
Yes,
this is real funny because I listen. Every Saturday morning I get up and I put on the old countdown, 70s on 7, and I'm listening to 1974. And I think we should make the OJs our representative of the Saturday morning sports page. Why I say that is because I'm listening to the OJs, and what is their hit? For the Love of Money.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. That's it, man.
Yeah, it is.
I'll tell you what, the OJs had it going back in the 70s. Their songs now are like, you listen to their songs, oh yeah, like how they can relate to today, like just like For the Love of Money. Listen to all the situation. This is For the Love of Money, this whole thing with the NBA contract. You're talking, now what I understand it to be, it's like it looks like they might go to mediation, TNT and NBC and the NBA, because TNT's basically saying about matching the offer, and they're being told, well, if you have to really match the offer, you have to match $2.8 billion, but NBC's getting it for $2.5 billion, and TNT say, well, wait a minute. Won't we get it for $2.5 billion to match? And it's supposedly they're putting in some kind of dollars and how it relates to what their audience is. So they're in kind of a squabble on what is the right number to match.
Okay.
So I got the impression that there's more of a dispute over the matching money. So maybe TNT, if TNT can get in a number everybody can agree to, they'll keep the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And NBC would not get it. But we're going to have to wait this one out because it sounds like they have a way to go.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like Amazon and ESPN have put their money up. And, you know, what cracks me up more than anything, I know they say that the ratings and the regular season ratings aren't very good. I get it. But I got news for you. It sounds like Amazon and ESPN and even NBC, they don't seem to really care about rate. I mean, they want that.
Yeah.
And so the ratings to them must be acceptable because they're putting out a lot of money for a product that gets average ratings, but they don't seem regular. Like the regular season ratings aren't great, but they want that package.
It makes me wonder if they incorporate and not the overall ratings, which includes the inside the NBA.
Right.
You know, just the overall ratings of what they get that night. And the ratings might be, it's pretty decent, but take out inside the NBA from that. Those ratings might be terrible. And they are negotiating, thinking that way because their shows, you know, even though the guys are real informative, Stephen A., Wilbon, they got Myers on there now, who's usually, but sometimes it's different guys in there. And they're informative too, but it's just the chemistry and the format of inside the NBA on TNT is just, you can't match it. ESPN can't match it. They got to do their own thing. And they're like I said, there'll be some funny stuff on there too. But no way does it match what TNT does. And I mean, what is Amazon going to do? Who are they going to have in there? And I mean, I'm sure they're going to go after these guys, though. I'm sure. I don't see Ernie Johnson going anywhere.
Right, Ernie won't go anywhere.
But the other three might. I don't even think Kenny's going anywhere.
I tend to think he's not.
No.
I think Shaq and Charles is a free agent.
Right.
He can go anywhere he wants. I think Shaq is on the same level. Shaq can get out.
Like he leans towards TNT.
Yeah, I think he would. You know, I'm guessing. Yeah, that's it. You know, Charles has the out. He could go. This will be really interesting to see how it works out. See what they ultimately do, or if NBC gets the deal, they just give all four of those. They want to keep all four, and they'll just make them offers they can't refuse money wise. They'll just they'll go to Ernie. Okay, I know you want to stay at TNT, but it's almost like, okay, that's great. How much do you want to come over? They'll just say, or here's almost a blank check. You fill it in. We want you.
Yeah.
And they'll do to Charles and all four of those guys. They'll just say, look, you're coming. We want you over here. I mean, they're figured, hey, we're putting say it's $2.5 billion a year. I mean, they'll just say to those guys, okay, how much do you want? Here it is, because $2.5 billion each year, we got to have you guys because we've got to keep this. We want that program.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll pay whatever. They make those guys the offer. They'll say they have to go. Even Ernie say, I'm married. They'll say, okay, how much do you want? You know, we'll triple your salary, or we'll make it so you have to come. And then, like, you know, Shaq and Kenny and Charles will just all four will just go because of the money.
Yeah.
That NBC's giving them because they want or Amazon.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Amazon's the other one that seems to have piles of money they like to throw at the NFL, $1 billion for the Thursday package.
Yeah.
I mean, all right, not to go, but Netflix buying to the two TV games.
Yeah.
Like it was 125, 120, 150 million. Yeah, 150 million for two games.
Yeah.
That's just two games.
Right.
So these streaming companies seem to
they're throwing that money out there.
Yeah. They got piles of money that they, you know, it's like, okay.
It's like Monopoly money.
It is.
Isn't it? It's like playing Monopoly.
It is.
I mean, it's just I grab a
Here it is.
Well, here
right.
you go.
When you play Monopoly with your kids, here, okay.
Yeah.
I want Park Place. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah. I mean, it is literally insane.
Yep.
And that's the part that I don't know moving forward. It's going to wait. Interesting to see how this plays itself out.
Mm-hmm.
Because who gets it? But then NBC, the word is they're going to be streaming all those games on Peacock. So you might be able to watch any NBA game at any time if you have Peacock.
Right. They're talking about streaming everything.
Everything.
Right? Yeah.
They could the word is, we believe, or was out there, the rumor is if NBC gets it, if you have NBC Peacock, you can watch you could just dial in any NBA game during the week and watch
take care of their ticket type thing too, right?
Yeah. So like if you want to see a Utah-Denver game in the middle of the week, 9:30 at night on a Tuesday night,
click it and go.
You could just dial in. If you're paying for Peacock, you could just go in there and dial out one up. Or the Knicks are playing Boston at 7:30. You watch that game, and then or you could probably, if you have the package, you could probably flip around and check out games.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Where it's so funny because years ago, growing up, I remember I lived in New York, so we got to see the Knicks games. All the away games were on Channel 9. And then we got to see, or sometimes we got tape delay games.
Yeah.
Of away games. We never got any home games.
Yeah. Not on WOR.
No. That's right. WOR 9.
Yep.
So you got to watch the Knicks games. But the only other games you got to watch was one time a week, Sunday at 3:30. You usually it was the Celtics at the 76ers. It was Wilt and Bill Russell going at it on Sundays at 3:30.
Right.
That was almost like a typical Sunday game. I mean, I just remember watching Russell and Wilt. It seemed like they were on every Sunday.
Yeah.
But it just seemed that way. But
it did.
The point is, you only got one NBA game a week back then.
Right.
And then when we moved out to Ohio, well, obviously we didn't get Channel 9 anymore. We only got the one NBA game.
Yeah.
And then, ultimately we got cable and we started getting the Indiana Pacers game.
And then you remember early cable days, WOR used to be on.
Yes.
The one cable, I don't know if it was Warner. I forgot who it was.
Right.
But it was on there.
Right.
Channel 9. I used to tune into that.
And you could get it.
Yep.
Yeah, depending on what cable company you had.
Yeah.
Living in Columbus, we got Channel 4 out of Indianapolis.
Okay.
So we used to get a lot of Indiana Hoosier games and all the Pacer games. So as I was watching the Pacers, that was the only other
team that close.
NBA game you really had.
Yeah.
And whatever the national TV had during the week. But people forget, in the 70s, they had the tape delay. The NBA title games were on tape delay.
Yeah, people don't know
people
that.
Forget that.
At night.
Right.
I mean, 11
o'clock at night. 11:30 at night was starting.
Yep. Many times.
Right.
Many times I watched it. I still remember watching a playoff game when Ralph Sampson hit that crazy shot against the Lakers and put them out of the play. And they were favored to win the championship that year. That was an 11:30 game. It was late. Oh, man, it's like 1 in the morning.
That would have been 81?
Yeah. It was tape delay.
It was tape delay. In 81, it was tape delay.
Oh, my goodness. And was I up? Yeah. Just to watch them.
Well, I remember when the Knicks beat the Lakers in 73. All those games were on late at night. Yep. I mean, they were not primetime games. I remember watching the Knicks and the Lakers. I was, literally, then I couldn't sleep because the Knicks beat the Lakers. But the point is, I remember I was in high school, I was a senior in high school or a junior in high school. But the point is, when the Knicks beat the Lakers, I remember staying up and watching that game.
Yeah.
And then it was like over at 2 in the morning.
Yeah. And I couldn't, because I remember my dad said, you can watch half of this game. You got school.
Right, because you got school.
You got school.
Right.
I think I was probably I might have been a 7th grader or something.
Right.
somewhere in there. And he'll give me one day of the week if they were playing.
Right.
Say, I'm gonna let you see this whole game, but you better get up in the morning.
Yeah, you got to get up out of bed. Right, you had to get out of bed.
He knew I wanted. He liked the Knicks too, so he wanted to see. You come out of New York, you better like your New York team. So.
Right. But I remember when the Knicks won it in 73. I was 17. I was a junior in high school. So I was at the age where my parents were like, they were like, stay up again.
Yeah.
You're old enough. You figure it out. Yep. And I stayed up. I got up and went to school the next day. I was out. I was so psyched. I don't know if I slept anyway. And then there was a guy in one of my classes. It was a Laker fan. I wanted to get up. He was in my first class. And because he was rooting for the Lakers, and he knew I was a Knicks fan. And then I got up that morning, and then he wasn't there. he didn't go. He didn't show up that morning. He stayed up rooting for the Lakers, and they lost.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you,
he didn't go to. I did. I wanted to say, hey man, the Knicks, and I was like, I was bummed because he didn't show up.
And back then, I guess I don't know what goes on now today, but back then that used to happen.
Oh yeah,
NBA, NFL games. Let your team lose the Super Bowl.
Right.
The next day, the kids, whoever loved that team, they're not coming. They're in depression.
Yeah. Yeah.
The kids that like a certain team they won, they can't wait to get there.
Right.
They can't wait. They're going crazy just to tease somebody.
And I was probably me and another guy. This guy was an Earl Monroe fan. This guy used to wear an Earl Monroe. He had made. Back then, people don't realize you couldn't get a jersey. You couldn't get those. They were not. You did not buy a jersey of it. You couldn't get it.
No.
There was a kid that he made Earl Monroe shirts. Like he had he had the number. Earl was 15, and he had Monroe, and he had a few of these shirts he would wear every day. He always had an Earl Monroe shirt on.
Yeah.
And I came to the conclusion that in that school, it was a big school, a big class. I mean, we had 744 kids, I think, in our class. I think he and I were the only Knicks fans, because I'm talking Westerville, Ohio.
Right.
Nobody's a Knicks fan.
Right.
He was, because he loved Earl Monroe. He he loved Earl Monroe. I was on his intramural team, and he'd wear the Earl Monroe shirt that he made playing intramural basketball. Yeah. He always had it on.
Right.
He loved Earl Monroe. So I came to the conclusion he and I were the only Knicks fans in the entire school, probably. And there were 2,000 kids in the school because there was only 3 grades.
Right.
And there were 700 each grade. But the whole point of it is I'm all running around. And the people are looking at me, why is he so happy and happy? The Knicks won. They go, half the people didn't even know who they were.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. That is true.
If I was in New York, that would be different. But you get out, in Ohio, they knew the Cavs were, they were Cav fans, some. But in Columbus, there were a lot of Cav fans. No. They were, the NBA was kind of, they were all Ohio State fans.
Yeah, right.
And Cleveland Brown fans.
Oh, yeah.
And there were and Bengals, but it was more, I would always say back then, growing up in Columbus, there always seemed to be a lot more Cleveland Brown fans.
Oh, yeah.
Because Cleveland was the older, because some people don't realize, the Bengals really didn't come into, they were in 1966, I believe, was their first season in the AFL.
Right.
So they were a new team.
Mm-hmm.
The Browns obviously were there
all the way back to
the 40s. Yeah, then you go back
AF, whatever the name
AAFC.
Yeah, something
way back. They were their own. They had their own conference, and they went over to the NFL in the late 40s. But the point is, Columbus was realistically a Cleveland Brown town.
Yeah, that's why they couldn't. Even now. People look and they say, I wish Cleveland Browns would change their helmets and stuff. You can't. They're iconic. Yeah. You can't change those. It's almost the same with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The way once they got, you can't change. Don't spruce stuff. You just got to leave it like that. They're iconic. helmets, the way it
Those
is. Just leave it there.
uniforms,
Don't put no emblem on the side of Cleveland. Now, one time back in the day, they used to have the numbers.
Yeah, they did.
Match their jersey. They used to be on there. But other than that, just leave that stuff alone.
Yeah, you never can't change it.
Yeah, just leave it like that. It's just like the Chargers. I mean, they are. But I used to like the white helmets.
Me too.
Didn't you?
Yeah. I like
gold Charger with the blue outline.
The blue outline, yeah.
Stuff was sweet.
And the powder
and
blue.
The powder blues on. Oh my goodness.
And they're still, I don't care. They're still the San Diego Chargers.
Yeah, and it's gonna stay for me.
Yeah.
I'm not getting it. Even though I know that's where they started, Los Angeles Chargers, but
One year.
1 year. That's one
and then
season.
they flipped over to San Diego
And
the
that's
second
all and they have been a mainstay. And I feel sorry for San Diego fans.
Me too.
Because that's where they need to be. They are the San Diego Chargers. That's it. That's all. I'm gonna always say it.
If Goodell does anything, which he won't, is they're never going to put. They should find a way, hook or crook, the old saying, by hook or crook, get the Chargers back in San Diego.
Yep.
They have
some kind of way.
Find a way, build the stadium that they want. Figure something out and stick them back in San Diego where they belong. Because they don't, and that the sad part is they don't even have fans there.
No, I mean, it's just.
I can make the argument the Rams don't even have a group.
Matter of fact, they had something on the news that showed just late, this past season, and it's after the Super Bowl winning season, that the Rams increase in attendance and stuff is much better now than when they first came. First game was terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody didn't care about that. They don't care. New stadium didn't care about that, But since they have, won that Super Bowl and they see something, and then this team now even transformed real quick. With all those players going out and bringing in new young guys, they're doing good. But the Chargers are not accepted yet. They're not.
And they won't ever be.
No.
I had sad news for you.
There's two things I think. Chargers, get them back there some kind of way and bring a team and forget about. I know you want to go overseas and stuff and Europe and stuff, but bring something to St. Louis. The St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, when it was the St. Louis Cardinals,
well, that was way back.
That's way back when the St. Louis ran. But I think about way back Busch Stadium they played at. Always sold out, no matter what their record was. Yeah. Those days. You got to bring a team to St. Louis.
Yeah.
You're going to get great backing.
Always will. The thing that was, I don't know why they should have left the Rams there and they should have put an expansion team in
Los Angeles,
LA, and then maybe added one or put really what they should have done is put the Raiders. That's what they should have done. Is left the Rams alone in St. Louis and
Raiders in
because the Oakland, they couldn't get that stadium.
The Raiders
should have put the Raiders in LA and they would have been, and that's who belongs in LA because they're iconic.
And you think the money wouldn't come in?
Oh my gosh. Well, they still the thing is down in LA, they still have a Raider fan base to when they were back when they won the Super Bowl there in 84, when they won that Super Bowl, the 1984 Super Bowl, they were the LA Raiders. Mm-hmm. They should have just said, okay, fine, move the Oakland Raiders down to LA, make them the L, and leave San Diego in San Diego. Let them either renovate or get that stadium deal done, and left St. Louis Rams alone out there in St. Louis, a hardcore fan base, supportive. That's a good, I still think it's a good, solid sports fan base in St. Louis.
All you gotta do is look at the UFL.
Right. The UFL is going crazy out there because
they love them.
People in St. Louis love sports. They love football.
Yep. And you don't have a team there. That is sad. I don't understand how they just don't see that, the economics of that one. To have an NFL team in St. Louis.
Right. Because then you have a natural rival with the Kansas City Chiefs because then you could I mean, I think that's where the NFL, I know they wanted to stick a team in LA in the worst way. Kroenke moved the team out there, had to pay then they had to pay the Rams ransom money. Literally almost $1 billion, I think, to almost $750 million because he was getting sued left and right.
Yeah.
He made these commitments and then he pulls the team. It was a disaster. And then then he went to the NFL owners to help bail him out. And they were like, we're like, that's your problem, buddy. Why are you coming? And he wanted, money from them. And we said, we didn't want you. We didn't tell you to move there. Right. You did this on your own.
Yeah. They should have stayed in St. Louis.
Right. They should have stayed in St. Louis, moved the Raiders, since the Raiders were moving anyway, move them down to LA, leave.
So I wanted them.
Yeah. Leave San Diego Chargers alone. Work on getting the stadium deal done down there. Let Goodell, I got money, figure that out. Whatever it would take, and leave the Chargers alone. Then the other team that I think to this day is another travesty in another sport in the NBA, the Seattle Supersonics.
Oh, come on, that's terrible.
That's got to be. I don't know.
You got to get a team there too,
right? Which was the worst move in sports? Moving St. Louis out to LA or taking Seattle, who'd been there since 67, 68, when they that's when they broke in with the Houston Rockets. They both came into the NBA together.
Right.
And Elvin Hayes was the reason why Houston got a team, because Elvin Hayes went to the University of Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Then they said, okay, Elvin Hayes is coming out. We need to put a basket NBA team in Houston, and Elvin Hayes is going to be there. I don't know how they rigged whatever they did.
But
they rigged the draft. He got a. Elvin Hayes was the reason why they have a team in Houston, the Rockets, is because of Elvin Hayes.
I really believe it was rigged.
I do too.
And I'm going to even say for my team, I even think it was rigged when we got Patrick Ewing.
Oh, it had to be.
It was like,
right.
How in the world are we going to get? There's no way we're getting Patrick Ewing.
No.
I think it was rigged. I mean, even though it's my team, I do.
Right. I'm sure.
I mean, the money is there, the right place.
Sure.
Biggest, money market.
Right.
All that stuff. But yeah, Elvin Hayes for sure.
Elvin Hayes. Elvin Hayes is the reason why they have a Houston Rocket team.
Man, I'm going to tell you that.
He was the guy.
Right. Seattle Supersonics. Right. Jack Sigma.
Right.
Dennis Johnson.
Right.
Gus
Johnson. Gus Williams. Back after a quick timeout. Saturday Morning Sports Page. Pat Lucia, Dave Clark.
Hey, let me ask you something. Would you seat your 3-year-old child on a windowsill? Would you seat them beside a lit fireplace or by the deep end of a pool? One last question. Would you seat your child in a car seat that's not correct for them? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Secure their future. Seat them in the correct car seat. For more information, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
During the fall and winter, grilling season never ends, and Gessler Propane is your local supplier that makes sure you get your hard-earned money's worth. Why go to gas exchanges to pay higher prices for tanks not filled to capacity? Gessler Propane makes sure you're prepared for year-round grilling with 100% filled tanks at a reasonable cost. See Bob Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, and Saturday, 9 to 3 at Gessler Propane, 702 Youngstown Poland Road, Struthers, or call 330-755-9119. Gessler Propane. They got gas.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
The year was 1907. The Cubs won the World Series and the Ford Model R hit the assembly line. While here in Ohio, school administrators came together to form the Ohio High School Athletic Association. One thing that hasn't changed since 1907 is the dedication of the OHSAA to education-based athletics in Ohio. School sports teach responsibility, sportsmanship, and life lessons that stay with students long after their playing days are over. The OHSAA seeks to prepare students not for the next level of sport, but for the next level of life.
Saturday Morning Sports Page. Pat Lucia, Dave Clark, Western Reserve Radio is the station you're listening to. To listen to us, just Google search Western Reserve Radio, and you can get us. I'm Pat Lucia, Dave Clark, 330-707-4202 to get in and talk sports. Again, we do it every Saturday morning here on Western Reserve Radio from 9 to 11. Dave Clark. As we were kind of talking the first quarter of the show, we're in the second quarter, talking a lot about teams, where teams should be, where they're not. And if we were commissioners, this is what we would do. I would have never moved Seattle out of there. I know they had a problem getting an arena deal. They wanted to get out of Key Arena, was old.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got money now. Come on. I mean,
I hate that happen.
That was, to me, I think they should have left the Rams in St. Louis, moved the Raiders down. Oakland, sad to say, is just...
Even though that's an iconic place to be at.
Yeah.
Oakland Raiders, it is, but they didn't want to give up anything. No. They wanted to stay in that rat
infested, possum infested.
Think of anything else you want to think of infested.
And now the A's are in there, and they're going to Sacramento next year.
Yeah.
And I guess they're going to play 2 or 3 years in Sacramento, and then ultimately, once Vegas has the stadium built, they will move to Vegas.
Yeah.
So they'll be in Sacramento for, I believe it was either 2 or 3 years, and then they go over to Vegas.
Goodness gracious.
Which is kind of, baseball's kind of, screwy too. They've got enough. They're supposedly going to expand baseball by 2. And then NBA, rumor is that they want to add 2 teams to the NBA. They only have 30.
Right.
NBA. So 32 would make a little bit more sense just because you have 16.
Mm-hmm.
But the word is they want to put a team in Vegas and a team back in Seattle.
Okay.
Is what the word is, supposedly. When this happens, we don't know. Speaking of that, it's coming up. It looks like, we predicted this, this was a while ago, which is no surprise, but it looks like the NFL will go to 18 games, which we know that's going, we've been talking about it.
We've been talking about.
That's going to be now sooner than later, a lot of people believe, because Goodell made the comment a couple months ago about it. And people are saying, well, if Roger brings it up, the owners, it's the owners. Now, Roger's just parroting what the owners are telling him.
Mm-hmm.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
But now they're going to have to make some kind of a concession to the players. They have to go to the players to get the agreement. They just can't go to 18. They got to get the players to sign off. So now there's discussion of, okay, what are the NFL players going to want in return? And the word is, at least speculation has it, that they want to cut the free agency down by a year. So they can become free agents sooner than they do now.
Yeah.
And they're going to want bigger rosters.
Yeah,
which makes they're going to have to.
They have to do that.
They're going to have to expand those rosters and even maybe expand roster practice squad players.
Yeah,
you're going to have, because you're just going to need and
I think you're going to have to get 2 byes.
Right, you're going to have to get at least 2 bye weeks in there. Mm-hmm. Then you're going to have to go ahead and expand those rosters because now you're adding that other game. Now the only thing that hurts is players trying to get on the team, cutting that one exhibition game out because they would go to 2 exhibition games. Mm-hmm. Players that would normally, those walk-ons or those later round draft picks that, shine in exhibition will now only have 2 games to do it.
Right.
So, word is obviously they're going to have 1 less game to do it, and they may get overlooked because they're just going to have less opportunity to impress a coach.
Right.
So
I think that's where that what they have is those infusion of practices against other teams. I think that'll become more commonplace all the time and more frequent. So even though you might only have 2 preseason games, you'll be playing, Philly might play like they do New England, somebody, I forgot how they do it. And they do them and they evaluate from that. And then, like you said, when you make that practice squad bigger, that will help. And then what comes into good effect is the UFL is going to help a big time for them, because now some of those guys that do get up under the radar, they go and play there. And then that very next season, these guys are being brought into camp because of the great season they had in the UFL. So I think all those things are going to have to work in hand. Wouldn't be surprised that when they go to 18 and do see this, that another spring league tries to pop up, which it shouldn't. Hopefully it just stays. But I wouldn't doubt it.
I wouldn't either.
Because if you're expanding teams, maybe, and rosters and all this, where's these guys extras guys gonna go? I mean, they can go to CFL and stuff like that, but they want to be somewhere right here where they can see them. So I can see another league try to spring up in it. And I was excited about having 2 leagues and everything, but you want to see them be successful. I think the best thing that happened was those 2 coming together, because they did. I've seen good football in both leagues. And when they said they would merge, I think it's just a better product.
Well, and that the other thing to it is the ratings, the TV ratings for those games are really good.
Yep.
And I think it caught a lot of, maybe not a lot, but some people by surprise.
Yeah, I think it did. I believe
how the ratings of those games are really good.
I mean, they don't have to be sold out stadiums.
No.
And the games are good.
And
I
the
watch
games
them.
are good.
They're pretty good.
They're competitive. It's good football.
Yeah, it's not no sloppy looking stuff. It looks good.
It looks good. The TV ratings are good. And that, as long as the TV ratings are good, I mean, you'll ultimately get the people showing up at the games.
Yeah, that's what'll happen.
That'll occur, but the fact that the TV ratings are so good, that means they're getting money through the TV, and that's really going to drive the boat, sort of to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Getting the people in and the concessions is a bonus. It's good, but the fact that people are tuning in to watch football in the spring and the ratings are good, that's going to sustain the league. And ultimately, it'll become more popular people-wise getting to the games.
Yeah. Yep.
But again, your TV ratings are really good.
Yep.
In fact, I believe the TV ratings are better than anything like baseball, or actually their rival, the NBA playoffs. I mean, that's how good these ratings are for football, which also goes back to what we keep saying on this show. At the end of the day, football is what drives the boat. I mean, what really kills baseball is World Series is when? Right in October, right in the teeth of football season.
Yeah.
And I hate to say, but baseball gets like to the point where it's in the total backseat. It's like, people even forget the World Series is on. I mean, there's the hardcore baseball fan
they're going to do it.
that gets grinding into it, and they love that. But the average fan who might have to watch baseball this time of year just because there's really nothing on. But as soon as football gets in, baseball, like they forget it even is out there ratings wise, and it shows that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in. They're watching, and it doesn't matter what football's on.
Right. And that's what that's shown this year with that UFL. It's shown that. And I heard people complain. Not a lot of fans in certain states, but it's like anything else. If it's new,
right,
and you wonder what it's going to be, how do you try it out? You watch it on TV first.
Right. And that's what happens.
Yeah, you watch, oh, wait, I might like this.
Now I might want to go to a few. And then
they're not high priced.
No, the tickets are reasonable. The concessions are reasonable because they want to keep it so the people will show up for the game incentive wise.
Right.
So then people can say, hey, wait a minute. This is a nice day. It's a sunny day. It's 70 degrees out. I could take my family. It's a Sunday. I could take them out to a football game and get a great seat and not get hammered with concessions and parking. And I could watch good football. My kids can watch football and can relax. I mean, but it's easy to get to. So all of a sudden it's like that's where, the word gets out popularity wise. Access is easy. Traffic going to the game isn't crazy because there aren't, all those people going yet. So you take advantage, and that's where you grow the attendance.
And hopefully they don't get crazy and mess their money situation up, but just stay in there, because if they just think about the old USFL, it got better and better. And it's starting to get a format. Just keep it there. And it'll be something perfect for that off-season brand of football you want to watch.
And that's it. The thing is, in fact, what they should be ultimately doing down the road, if they haven't already, get almost with partnering with the NFL as far as players, like a quasi-minor league for the NFL. You have college, but then you have this I can't want to call it the USFL.
I know.
Because that's, again, it's like 19.
It's hard.
It's
UFL.
hard.
It's hard to leave that S out of there.
Yeah, you can't. It's hard to leave that.
Yeah, I do it too.
But if you could develop it and leave it, because people love to watch spring football because and the ratings show it.
Right.
People don't let go of football. It goes from, February and the Super Bowl's over. I'm convinced there's a lot of people that love to watch football, and you get it on in the spring, they'll just transition over.
Yeah, they will. Especially if the quality is good. They see that quality is good.
Right.
I'm going to watch
quality's good.
It'll hold me until time for you got the draft.
Right, the draft.
He's
you
still
bring
playing.
it on over. You keep playing.
And what is the championship next week?
Yeah.
No, it's not. That's just the playoffs.
That's the playoffs.
And then the championship is like June 16th or something.
Middle
like that.
June.
Yeah.
So you're now, at least you're to middle June, and your training camps start in July.
Yeah.
So
couple weeks, that's all.
You're almost going right from one to the other.
Yeah.
And you can have your football fix close to 12 months.
Easy.
Which is what everybody, again, the ratings show that. TV ratings don't lie. People could, you weren't here the week. We were kind of talking about WNBA. And it's like, I know they get upset, but because they don't get the pay. But the reality is, it's just, you don't have the TV ratings.
Right.
You got to have eyeballs on the set to get people to watch. And if people are watching your sport, it's going to generate the money. And football is America's sport.
Right.
I'm reading a book about 1908 baseball. It's about the year of 1908, and it's just fascinating book. But the way baseball's played, and it's unbelievable. It's just what it was, but it was no other sport was playing, and that was the sport. And the racism is just is absolutely unheard of. It makes your skin crawl. On top of it, they've kind of talked about it, but it just goes to show you that was America's sports. But these stadiums were built like crap, blunt to the point, because the owners didn't want to put any money in them. They were just these rickety, literally not cardboard, but close to cardboard stadiums that were just crap, built like crap. People would sell out. People would stand around the field, outside on the field. They were getting in fights. They were throwing bottles at the players. They were talking about playing in the New York Polo Grounds, where the people were just nasty, and the opposing team didn't want to go there because the fans were just so bad and rowdy, and they would drink and get in fights, and there were deaths. This is just like, I'm reading this book, I'm thinking, this is like, granted, 1908, well over 100 years ago, but just reading about this, it just blew my mind how, like this, but this was America's sport.
Right.
Back in 1908.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it goes to show you, obviously, we've evolved, thank God. But the point on it is now, when you look at football and you come to this day and age, we talk NFL, college are 1 and 2. And then, you could make the argument basketball and baseball are kind of competing against one another for that third spot.
Yeah.
And then everything else just kind of falls. Like this past, they were just a show, Mad Dog Russo, the TNT game, that was a blowout on
recent,
the one that was Dallas, Minnesota.
The last one
was a blowout.
Right.
Hockey was on ESPN, but the blowout game that a lot of people didn't watch because it was so bad, they had double the ratings than the hockey. And hockey was on ESPN.
And the NBA still doubled the ratings.
And they doubled the ratings. And the blowout game doubled the hockey rating. Hockey was 2 point or maybe 3. And NFL was like, NBA was like close to 6.
Wow.
So they actually doubled the hockey. And the hockey was a great game, competitive game.
Yeah.
But in the NBA game, the Dallas, Minnesota game that was on was not.
No.
That game was pretty much over at halftime.
Yeah. I think they spent themselves from not getting
swept.
And they just had nothing left. They looked like they had nothing left.
Minnesota had literally, and they were playing at home, and Luca had a great game. Luka Doncic played a great, but so did Kyrie.
Yep.
And, they actually just blew Minnesota out. I think you hit the nail on the head. Minnesota did not want to get swept. They let it all hang out on the court, Game 4. And
should have won some earlier games, but of
the game
just being young and stuff, they just...
The game that hurt them was the game that Luka hit the 3 right at the end, almost at the end, and Dallas won that game. That should have been the Minnesota's game because Minnesota did outplay them in a couple games but lost. But we've seen that as a trend in the NBA.
Yeah.
Indiana did that against Boston. They actually, I thought they outplayed Boston
a couple times,
a couple games that they should have won. That first game especially was a game that they gave to, and I knew right then and there.
The last one with the
even the last one, the last one they actually had them.
Yeah,
they found a way. Indiana found a way to lose game 1 and game 4. 2 games they obviously should have won. Outplayed Boston pretty much from the tip, but at the end of the game fell apart. Boston just took advantage, and they handed Boston a win in both games. And then obviously Boston being the better team, Boston has pretty much slept through this NBA playoff. They took Miami out 4-1, and that really wasn't even a competitive series.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, okay. And then they played, obviously they beat Indiana 4-0, and that really wasn't, it was.
I mean, it was competitive at first. It was, like I said,
they get out, Boston got outplayed, but because Boston's just the better team.
Yeah. And know how to play. They played well in crunch time.
Right.
And now I'm looking at this game and said, Dallas got outplayed. You wonder who can win this. Now, in a way, I'm going for Boston in a way. And the only reason, and that's really abnormal. I never go for Boston. But the only reason, Luka Doncic was annoying me during the playoffs.
Totally.
And the only reason he was, I never seen people used to talk about Magic.
No.
They say something about LeBron. I've never seen a guy cry about every single touch.
He's at another level.
I mean, his whining and crying.
He's brutal.
And I looked at him, I said, man, this guy's 6'7", 245 pounds. He's got Jaden McDaniels watching him, who's nowhere near his size, but is definitely physical, right on him. Same with Dort, who was from Oklahoma City.
Right.
These guys is, they push his arm. He's whining all over the place to the refs, just crying every second. He got on my nerves. Kyrie get hit, but Kyrie just gets up and keep playing. He may say something to the refs, come on, and just keep playing. Doncic be up and down the court during play, still arguing about 20 plays ago. And I said, man, this guy's he's getting on my nerves doing that. I said, now, Boston, just take them off just because of him. Just because of him. I've never seen a guy that good, because he's good. No, that guy's an excellent player, but where's all this crying? I don't remember him doing that much. Now it's just like, at a different status, and he's done turned to this guy that I don't know.
He's a great player. He sets the guys up offensively. I watch him play, and he could drive to the basket. He passes the ball. He knows where people are on the. He has a, he's kind of like just have that instinct ability to know where people are. He gets them the ball. He sets people up offensively. Defense, I guess he's got, he plays it not as strong, but again, at the end of the day, he stepped it up in the playoffs. He works well with he and Kyrie have worked really well together. But the whining to the referee, he is in a class unto himself. I agree with you. I've never seen a guy just constantly whine to the refs. I mean, I'm trying to think back when, players that I've watched play that were always kind of whining a little bit. You brought Magic up. Yeah, a little bit. Magic was always working them a little bit. Yeah. Bird was always kind of working the refs. Yeah.
But I always could deal with them because
those
they
guys
came back
weren't.
And did this.
They were just. Yeah, it was kind of just part of the stick, but they didn't carry it to that level. Yeah, Jordan probably was a little. I never really remember Jordan really complaining a lot to the refs. Maybe he did. I just don't really remember Jordan doing that much. I mean, you see all the players kind of do it. LeBron will do it. They all kind of do it because it's kind of part of the game. The coaches are working the refs.
They're working the refs to get the calls. But, but that constant.
But Luca brings it all to a different level.
That whining is ridiculous.
And he doesn't stop. But
so what's going to happen this series, because I do believe they're going to put, I think far as Kyrie, I don't know. They probably put Derek White on. Derek White is one of the most underrated guys in the NBA. This guy can play offense, defense. He do it all. And I mean, he plays physical enough to give you problems. And then you're going to have to play defense against him because he can score. And he goes inside and do whatever. So, you still got Holiday. Is he going to be on Luca or is Jaylen Brown?
No. What they should do is this, my guess. To me, the reason, if Boston wins this title, which they're favored, but the difference on the Celtics is Drew Holiday.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
Like
his defense is ridiculous. He could play
unbelievable.
He could play forwards, guards, whatever.
Anything.
And he could do them.
To me, that's the difference in the Celtics. And that's the reason why Milwaukee failed this year. That was the worst trade Milwaukee could ever make. Whoever decided in the Milwaukee organization to trade Drew Holiday should be fired. I'm sorry. You don't trade. No. If Boston wins the title, Drew Holiday is like kind of the missing link they needed. But I watch him defensively. He's a genius. He knows where to be, how to be, what position he needs to steal a ball. He's always doing something. And offensively, who makes that clutch shot? Drew Holiday.
Yeah. And he's physical.
Physical ball player, smart, but he's always doing something to the other team offensively, defensively. Boston wins a title. He's kind of the reason why they won it. I know they've got, again, I don't want to take it away. They got, Brown is a great player. Defensively, I think what they'll do is they won't wear Brown out trying to guard Kyrie because that'll take away from his offense. Right. I think they stick Drew Holiday on Kyrie, and that could be the difference. But Kyrie's a great player. Right. And the sad part with Kyrie, for all of his issues that he had previously with other teams, it seems to me, and some people give it Jason Kidd the kind of credit for Kyrie, because Kyrie seems to really want to play for Jason Kidd. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming he really respects Kidd because Jason Kidd played and was one of the greatest point guards in the game. He's always in the argument, who's your greatest point guard? Right. Jason Kidd, Isaiah Thomas, you get into Stockton, Magic, but he's in that discussion. The point is, I think Kyrie really likes playing for Jason Kidd because he was one of the best point guards in the game. So he stepped up his game, and Kyrie's talent has always been through the roof. He always knew he was a great player.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he could do it.
And you put Luca in with him, and Luca's a great player. The whining with the refs.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Oh.
And then when I give credit to Dallas, I got to give it to their organization. You bring Gafford and PJ Washington over that team.
The trade.
That you talking about. Gafford and that Lively, those two guys, that dual center of coming in and out.
The way
they are so active. They're all over the place. But that's where I said Boston, with their young, active guys, they can compete with them. I don't see no matchup for Jason Tatum. As long as he don't fall in love with the three, because he loves to do that, and he can make them, but he could really take guys to the basket if he wants to.
Oh, he can.
Now, Jaylen Brown does it. He shoot three, but he take you to the basket.
Right.
Jason Tatum can too. He just don't do it all the time.
No, he
could overwhelm you.
Yeah, he's got the long body, tall, quick.
Yep.
Yeah,
he got it.
Yep.
That dude is.
Boston, talent-wise, has the team that should win it. If they get Porzingis back, who they're talking about,
that's going to really be a problem.
It's really going to be a problem for Dallas if Porzingis can come back and play for Boston. Now you have that. Add Porzingis in the mix. I still think that it's going to be one or two things. Dallas is going to be one of those teams. It kind of reminds me a little bit like back in 1977, and we're going to open the door because Bill Walton, the great Portland and then the Celtics center, and then he was with the Clippers, passed this week of cancer at age 71. One of the greatest college players, I would say Jabbar / Lou Alcindor, UCLA was number 1, and Walton was number 2 as far as great college players of all time.
Yeah. People will probably want to argue it with other players, but I always name them, Pete Maravich and all that. And the reason I say that, those guys played 4 seasons.
Right.
And you got Jordan, who's a great player, but he didn't play but 3.
Right.
You got other guys that played 2, and LeBron didn't play at all. So, you can't compare. Them guys are great college.
Yeah, and people realize Lou Alcindor / Jabbar, they only played 3 seasons. They couldn't play as freshmen.
That's right.
Saturday morning sports page is halftime. Back after a quick timeout. Western Reserve Radio.
You're listening to WRDB, Western Reserve Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, Warren, Salem, and around the world.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. Take 1.
Behold the angry giant.
Try it again, Alberto.
Behold the angry giant.
Perfect. Good luck tonight.
Behold the angry giant.
Yay! Read me another one, Dad.
This is WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
The Mahoning Valley's leader for golf, Milk Creek Golf Course, is now booking tee times for 2024. We offer stay and play opportunities available with 9 area hotel partners. For more information, visit our website at millcreekmetroparks.org. Also, look for new, exciting opportunities coming soon, including an indoor player development center with Trackman, an indoor Callaway Club Fitting Center, and an Odyssey Fitting Studio in 2024. Follow us on Facebook at Milk Creek Golf Course or call 330-740-7112.
Saturday morning sports page, Pat Lucia, Dave Clark, halftime of the show. Now we're into the third quarter. 330-707-4202. Get in and talk sports. We do it every Saturday morning here on Western Reserve Radio. You know, Dave Clark, we're kind of going back in time, but talking a lot about, UCLA and Lou Alcindor when he was Lou Alcindor before his name changed at UCLA. He won 3 titles easily.
Mm-hmm.
Was most people, you could get these arguments who was the best player. But, I mean, at least I could tell you because I watched him play. I was old enough. He was the best college player I ever saw.
Yeah.
Ever. And, Walton could be a number 2. And we wanted to talk, obviously, poor Bill Walton. He passed. Condolences to the entire Walton family and obviously his fans. Great guy. Very likable. Very down to earth. Talk to people, just all kinds of great things Bill Walton did. Great. So I think he was funny. He did the college games. I know some people didn't like the way he did college games when he was doing the announcing.
Yeah, no.
He was out there but he was Bill Walton.
Right.
And he was a Grateful Dead. He was a Deadhead.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he told you that, he went to he followed the Grateful Dead all around, but he was really a great guy and a great player. Sadly, though, his NBA career is down to like 3 seasons, where 77, they won the title. Then in the following year, they were 50-10 when he went out with the injury, and they would have won the title in 70. And Bill Walton stayed healthy. They would have easily won the title. Washington won it that year. They beat Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm convinced that if Walton stayed healthy, he would have won another back-to-back title. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. And then he won a title with the 86 Celtics coming off the bench,
right,
helping Bird and Parrish and McHale. And that was a great team. But Bill Walton passed this week at the age of only 71 due to cancer, but a great player. But I always rated Walton as a great college player, but maybe number 2 to Jabbar.
Yeah.
Because still to this day, I remember growing up watching him. I was 10, 11 years old, and you didn't get a lot of games on TV. People keep thinking that it wasn't ESPN. There was no ESPN till 1979.
Right.
So in the 60s and really into the 70s, there's no ESPN.
Right.
So anything you read about it in Sports Illustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever you watched was on TV, but those games are sometimes late if they were even on.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is, but the games you watched him play, he was just a great player. They changed the dunk rule. They did not allow dunking when Lou Alcindor came into the league. They outlawed it because
when he came to
when he got into college, his sophomore year, they outlawed dunking because there's no way Lou Alcindor could. But he said that helped him. Because he said that was probably a very good thing for me because I learned the sky hook, I learned other shots, and then that sky hook was totally unstoppable.
And he had a decent jump shot.
Yes, he did.
That he could do. So it really just made him well rounded.
It actually made him better.
And I seen in my lifetime, it might probably happen other times, but I know actually blocked his sky hook before. I seen, and he just barely tipped it. It was Will Chamberlain.
Yeah.
I seen Connie Hawkins get it.
Yep.
And Julius Erving coming across to get his sky hook.
And get it.
Yeah, was able to block. That thing was unstoppable.
Yeah, it was unstoppable.
You couldn't even get to it. Once he gets you to his back, so he goes back and forth and then goes over that left shoulder, you could just forget it. You couldn't get up there with it. It's just... It's like a jump shot, perfect.
Yeah, Connie Hawkins too, and Julius Erving. They had wingspans that were unbelievable, and they had giant hands. Yeah. Connie Hawkins had
that's simple.
He'd hold that ball. Connie Hawkins had those hands, and even like Dr. J like a baseball.
Yeah,
and he could jump. A playground legend in New York City, Connie Hawkins. So Dr. J was also from New York area. He went to Roosevelt, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was basically his idol guy too.
Yeah, it was Connie Hawkins because Hawkins was probably roughly about 8 years before Dr. J. And then there was a great book I read years ago called Foul. It was about Connie Hawkins, and it was growing up, and how poor he was.
Yeah,
and he always said, "I thought I was poor." Then I met Billy Cunningham.
Yeah,
and he was poor if it was possible, but he was actually poorer than I was.
Yeah,
he had shoes that didn't fit him. Billy Cunningham would play on these. It's just
great player,
just a great player. And he just, he was talking about growing up where he went to school and all the, Roger Brown.
Yeah,
was back with Connie Hawkins. He went to, I think Connie Hawkins went to boy girl high school.
Yeah, that's where my brothers graduated from.
Girls High School. Yep. And I forgot. I got to look. Roger Brown went to the rival school in New York. I got to look it up.
Yeah.
And then they got in trouble because they got into a car, but Jack Molinas gave them a ride that changed their lives forever and ruined, to some extent, us from watching them play in the NBA at a young age, because then all of a sudden, because Molinas was the known gambler, all of a sudden people thought Roger Brown and Connie Hawkins were associated because they got into a car with Molinas. He took him home one time.
Yeah.
And that word got out, and then was wildfire, and those guys were banned from the NBA.
Yeah, no, that was a terrible misdeed that happened.
Oh, totally.
Because these guys was unstoppable.
I mean, that was unbelievable. And then again, you get those great players like Hawkins, and you talk about Dr. J blocking this Jabbar Skyhook. But to me, I've always said I was lucky. I got to see Russell play. I saw Chamberlain play, and Jabbar, and even Willis Reed. Willis Reed was very underrated and very skilled. But the most skilled player I ever saw play at that position was Jabbar. Chamberlain was great, though.
Yeah.
It's hard. It was hard, but I never saw a player do what Jabbar did quite at that level.
Yeah. And I think when you go skill level, you look at basketball skill, I give it to Jabbar. And when you just say athleticism skill, Chamberlain, because he could do anything.
He could do anything.
That's why, he played.
Yeah. Volleyball. He's a great volleyball player. Unbelievable, skilled. Yeah. He was an athletic.
Played for the Globetrotters.
Right.
He could do whatever you
everything.
want. That's the difference. But Wichita was just so much more precise in what he did, Jabbar. That's why he looked much more skilled. Where sometimes, Chamberlain could look awkward.
A little bit.
Some things that he did.
But you're
so
right.
dominating.
But he was dominating. And the only, he and Russell would just go at it. And Chamberlain lost playoff games so close. But you could argue that Chamberlain was on two of the greatest teams of all time. The 66-67 Philadelphia 76ers, people do make a case they are one of the greatest team of all time. And the 71-72 Lakers, also the greatest team of all time. I believe they went 69-12. So
a lot of times they want to bring up the
or 69-13
Golden State, but those teams were different back then.
It's right. And you could, and I think that's what, Jabbar, very skilled, great skill player. Chamberlain, though, on just some of the two greatest teams of all time, you make the argument they were in. Thing with Bill Russell, where Russell doesn't seem to get a lot of respect, is because he never scored a lot. But the thing with Russell is he was part of that Boston Celtic team. And the thing with the Celtics, they always had a great team.
Yeah.
And Russell was the leader and the facilitator of that team. But they had great players on that team. And it was just, that's why they won all those titles.
Right.
And I don't know if Russell wins all the titles on another team, or he
Right.
would have changed his style of play a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe could have been a great scorer, but he didn't have to be.
Yeah, he didn't have to do
Because he had, I mean, when you look at those Celtic teams, you had Casey Jones, well, Cousy, Sam Jones, and then Cousy retired. Casey Jones takes over and is basically the playmaker, the facilitator, point guard on that team. Sam Jones could just shoot the ball like nobody. People forget how great a shooter Sam Jones was.
Mm-hmm.
You had Heinsohn, and then Havlicek replaced Heinsohn when Heinsohn retired, but Havlicek coming off the bench was unbelievable.
Yep.
And you had Satch Sanders, who was the forward, who was the defensive shutdown guy.
Mm-hmm.
And you had Russell. But you had different, and Larry Siegfried coming off the bench. You had so many different players. Auerbach was a great coach.
But he had the players.
But he had the great, and they knew where to go.
And that's why I say when they always talk about Auerbach or Phil Jackson, I always say, let's also give credit to what they had in the locker room.
Oh,
they
yeah.
had great players. That's why you got great coaches, because they had great players. They had great players on their team. That's why.
Right. They had great players. And like you hit the locker room, well, Russell was the leader, but all those players, like there was no I.
Yeah.
Like Havlicek, all those guys played hard. Like the one game, it was 66. It was a playoff game. It was Philly and the Boston Celtics, and Russell's. It's Russell. They're only down by they're up a point, and Russell's inbounding the ball, and he throws the ball. It hits a guide wire, and it goes out of bounds. It becomes 76er ball, and Russell is just like freaking out, thinking, "I just blew this game." And he's like kind of beside himself, and they're like getting behind. Don't worry about it, Bill. And he said, I'm just like thinking I blew the game. They're going to come back. They have time. They're going to score it. So sure enough, Philly inbounds the ball. That's the ultimate. Havlicek stole the ball.
Yep.
And so, Russell goes to Havlicek, "You bailed me out." And Russ Havlicek goes, "No, I didn't. You're our leader. I did what I had to do, Bill. We won the game. Like, we're a group. Russell was on it, like down on himself, and they're like, "No, Bill, you're our guy. You're the leader. You're the reason why we're here."
Yeah.
But that's how they felt.
But isn't that funny how that kind of stuff in their history happened over and over?
Yep.
Just like Bird. Bird stole the ball from Isaiah.
Yep, from Isaiah.
From
right.
Inbound pass.
Inbound pass against Detroit.
Right.
Same
thing.
Same thing.
Same exact thing.
Same thing. Same exact, like history repeated itself.
Yeah.
But the thing would crack me up more than what I thought it was fascinating is the fact that like the players, like they didn't look at it that way. They were like, "We're the team.
Right.
We did it for the team." Russell was down on himself for hitting the guide wire on the inbound, thinking, "I'm going to give the 76ers the ball. They can win the game." And he goes, "I felt like he goes, Havlicek, I owe you." He goes, no, you don't owe me anything, Bill.
That's
because
it was more. Back then, teams were like that.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
They were real close knit, and they were together. No free agency. They came back.
Yep.
And they played together, and it was every year in and year out. It was Casey Jones, Sam Jones, Satch Sanders, Bill Russell, John Havlicek, or Tommy Heinsohn.
Yep.
And it was Siegfried off the bench. These Celtic teams, and they knew where to go. Like I went to a game years ago. My father got us floor seats. It was like the Knicks were not quite that good yet, and tickets were so easy to get back then. I'm talking like mid '60s.
Right.
We went to a Celtic Knick game. We had floor seats. I don't know where my father got these tickets. Maybe he knew a guy at work. Anyway, we're on the floor. I'm watching the Celtics play the Knicks. I never saw a team in my life. Everybody on that Celtic team knew where to go. Like they were like watching a symphony.
Mm-hmm.
They knew Russell knew the out through the ball, where Havlicek there, boom. They beat the Knicks that night, fairly easy. The Knicks were still young. Reed was only, I think, his second year. I'm going back a few years. But the whole point of it is I never saw a team like the Celtics just work as the ultimate team together.
Right.
And there was no I.
Yeah, it was different. It's different back then. I think about all the teams, different teams. You think of the Lakers with West,
Right? West, Elgin, Baylor,
Goodrich,
right?
All together. They played together. Great stars.
They played as a great team. The 73 Knick team might have been one of the greatest underrated teams, but they showed a thing on, I forget, it was on Fox Sports when they do that show with Broussard. They showed the winning percentage of
whatever.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
The one, they showed the teams who won the title, their opponents. And the Knicks won that title in 73. They had the opponents together had the best winning percentage than any other opponent. Number 2 was 95 Houston, won it. But the 73 Knicks had the hardest way to go
to win
the title. They beat the best teams ever in history.
Yep.
And Houston was number 2. 95 Houston was number 2. But the 73 Knicks was a team of, again,
great
players as a team.
And they talked about it this past week when they kept talking about Luca and Kyrie being one of the best backcourts in the history of the game. So then Kenny Smith said, yeah, I see where they come from. But he said, don't forget this iconic duel. And he brought up Earl Monroe and Walt Frazier.
Right.
And Walt Frazier thought they wouldn't be able to play together because, he's like, wow, Earl's the guy with Washington. Going to come in here. Is this going to change my game? Those guys work like a sympathy. I mean, their stuff was so organized. They were great together.
What people don't realize is Earl Monroe with the Baltimore Bullets was one-on-one probably the best player in the game back in the late 60s, early 70s. Oh, yeah. Nobody could stop him. Right. Nobody. As they referred to him in the one Black Jesus.
Right.
Yeah. He was one of the best players. He was Earl was Monroe was like 6'3", 6'4", kind of. He didn't look that tall, but he was.
I know.
But he was an unbelievable player. Nobody could guard him one-on-one. He had all those weird moves where he could just fake, and then all of a sudden the ball's in the air in the basket, and the guy's looking around. What happened?
Yeah. His fadeaway.
He had the greatest fadeaway shot. But they said that Earl Monroe, when he went to New York, he had to make the sacrifice of being more of a team player because he's with the Knicks, that he wasn't one-on-one anymore. And they said that Monroe realistically really changed his game. He was very talented, but to fit with the Knicks and Walt Frazier. And obviously it made the Knicks a better team.
Yeah.
By far.
Yeah.
And I think the Knicks the trade was Dave Stallworth and Mike Reardon. I remember when they made the trade.
Yeah.
Because I was a sophomore in high school, and there was a teacher I had who was hard, like as a coach, but he loved sports. And we went into his class. It was 9:00 in the morning. And the first thing he said is, "I can't believe it." And we're like, "What do you mean?" The Knicks just got Earl Monroe. So we're in class, right?
Yeah.
And this teacher goes, I can't believe it. I go, what's like something in history? No, the Knicks just got Earl Monroe from the Bullets. I can't believe they traded Earl Monroe. Nobody could why would they trade Earl Monroe? Yeah. Everybody was like losing their mind.
Yeah. And
I couldn't believe it either. I was like, great.
Yeah, me too. I couldn't believe it. I was loving it.
Yeah, when they got Earl Monroe, and everybody was like going, "Hey, this is unbelievable."
Now I'm trying to think. 73 team.
Yeah,
was Dean Meminger a part of that?
Yeah, Dean
the Dream off the bench.
Dean Dream,
because somebody got injured and he had to play big minutes, and he was great.
Dean Meminger. That team, the 73 team, was Jerry Lucas, because he took Willis Reed, but they had Jerry Lucas, and that's where that team got really hard to go. People don't realize that was a hard team to defend.
Yeah, Lucas was good.
Because Lucas was a great outside shooter. He had that little set shot, top of the key and then the DeBusschere was the rebounder, but he was also a great shooter from the corner. He had that shot. Russell told him one time in practice, Bill Russell was doing the games for ABC then.
Yeah.
So DeBuscher's practicing that outside shot from the side. And Russell goes up to him and says, "What are you practicing your layups?"
Yeah.
And DeBuscher starts cracking up. Russell's just that great sense of humor. But the point is, they had so many. Reed was a great. See, I always thought with Willis Reed, what happened is Reed was the center when he came out of college from Grambling.
Right.
And then they traded for Walt Bellamy. And they put Reed out at forward and had Walt Bellamy, a great player, I think a great center, played center.
Yeah.
And they were a good team. They weren't a great team, but they were a good team. Then they decided to trade Walt Bellamy to the Pistons, and that's where they put Willis Reed back at center. But what people don't realize, Willis Reed had really developed a great shot playing forward. And he was kind of like, Reed was like probably 6'6", maybe, but they listed him at 6'10", but he wasn't.
Oh, he wasn't that tall.
No, he was never 6'10". He was like 6'6", 6'5", but he was Charles Barkley before Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
So anyway, he had a great shot and he had developed that, and he learned to kind of be a forward. But when he went back to center, he became a tough guy to guard because now he had the skills of a good center, but he had really good skills as a forward. So if you were a center trying to guard him, he'd drive you crazy.
Yeah.
Because he was too big for forwards to guard because he had that mammoth body. And then he was hard for a center because he was too quick. So he became a nightmare to guard back then.
Right.
And then you had Lucas and DeBuscher. And then you had like Nate Bowman coming off the bench. And people don't realize he was 6'10", but he used to drive Chamberlain crazy. Because he was like always like at Chamberlain, he said, he was a backup and people go, Nate Bowman, but he would drive people crazy because he was like 6'10", 6'11", probably like 230, but he was skinny, wiry, but defensively, he would just get under people's skin. Long arms, get in your space. And he was like that fly you couldn't get away from you.
Yeah.
But that 73 team was unbelievable.
Yep.
But
and Miminger Marquette, right?
Miminger went to Marquette. He won the 1970 NIT title. They beat Pistol Pete in the semifinals. Allie McGuire could have gone to the NCAAs that year, and he said, "No, I don't like the seeding or where you're putting me. I'm going to go to the NIT." They won the NIT.
Right.
They beat St. John's in the final. They beat Pistol Pete in the semifinals, but it wasn't even a game.
And people don't realize back then, the NIT was the top.
It was.
It's the top thing.
In the 60s and the NIT was actually more of a... and they played all the games in New York City.
Yeah, yep, sure did.
But Dean Miminger was an unbelievable player defensively. He had those long, long arms. And on that 73 team, he was just there. He was like... He would score when you needed that basket. He'd make that steal because those arms were so long and he knew where positioning to be, how to steal the ball. And they had Phil Jackson on that team.
Yep.
He had those long arms and he was a great defender, especially guarding the guy and bounding the ball. He'd put those arms up the guy couldn't see. And then Miminger was another one with the long arms. He was just kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
And they had great guys coming off that bench on that team.
Yep.
But it's an underrated team because people don't pay attention.
You don't even talk about it.
No. And they watch them play, but they were a great team. Bradley, DeBuscher, and Lucas would come off the bench with Reed, and then they would put Holzman was a fantastic coach. So he would interject Lucas and Reed at the same time and then have DeBuscher out or then put him in. I mean, they were a nightmare to guard because you had all these guys that were around like DeBuscher, Reed, and Lucas were like 6'7", 6'8". I think DeBuscher was 6'6", but they knew where to be and how to score, and defense was unbelievable because you had Frazier, you still had Barnett.
Yeah, Dick Barnett.
Dick Barnett was still on it, and you had Miminger on that team. And Miminger would drive everybody crazy
because of those long
and defense.
Yep.
And he was from New York City, Neminger, and he went on to Marquette, and then the Knicks drafted him, and he came back
to New York City. Boy, they loved Dean
the Dream.
Yeah, he was something else. I still remember it. Loved it.
It was like one of my favorite teams of all time.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's the team. I stayed up late, 2:30 in the morning watching them win, and I couldn't sleep. Got up, waited for that kid to come in at school. He didn't show up because I wanted to get him. I said, "Hey, you're Lakers. What happened?" Because this guy loved Jerry West and Goodrich. He liked the Lakers,
right?
And Chamberlain. He loved all the Lakers, and I was, we would.
And they had a great team.
They did. That was the team the year before that won the title in '72. They beat the Knicks in 5 games in '72.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Knicks turned around, and it was the same thing. They beat the '72 Lakers beat the Knicks in the first game, and then the Knicks took 4 straight from them. I mean, other way around. '72, Knicks beat them in game 1, and then the Lakers took 4 straight. And they were close games.
Yeah.
Because the Knicks played them hard, but the Lakers were just really better.
Yeah.
And then the following year, it was the other way. Knicks lost the first game by, 115, 113. They lost that first game to the Lakers, but then they took the next 4 and they won the title. It was like 72, the Lakers, 73, the Knicks, and then 74, the Celtics won.
Right.
They beat Milwaukee, which might have been one of the greatest series of all time, that Kareem won the game 6 with the hook shot at the buzzer in Boston. Then Boston beat Milwaukee game 7 and 1.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Cowens.
Yep.
But that Jabbar team was a great team, but they lost game 7 to Boston at home. But Jabbar won game 6 at the hook shot at the buzzer.
Yep.
And I remember that game. I was watching that game, and sure enough, man, it was like he went right over to that corner. You knew it. And Cowens couldn't do anything.
He couldn't. Yeah,
he tried to. He couldn't. He couldn't block it.
No.
And Jabbar went over to that corner and took the hook shot right as the ball went in. The buzzer went off, and that forced game 7.
Mm-hmm.
That was an unbelievable series too.
Yeah.
One thing this year I think is good is different teams are winning the title.
Yeah.
This decade.
Yeah.
There's no dominant team.
Right. You've seen
the last time you had it was 1970s, in the 70s. If you look at who won the titles in the 70s versus now, this might set a record for different teams.
Yeah. Which makes it better for
it's a lot better.
The fan base will go crazy all over.
Yep. Saturday Morning Sports Page, back after a quick timeout.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Western Reserve Radio is the Valley's online source for sports talk and local live events. Tune in and be a part of their live weekly shows, as well as all of the hard-hitting action of Youngstown Phantoms hockey, high school football, and the GDFL. Find them at westernreserveradio.com. Tune in and the Live 365 app to be a part of the area's sports conversation. Be sure to visit them on Facebook at Western Reserve Radio and on Twitter at WR_radio.
The Mahoning Valley's leader for golf, Milk Creek Golf Course, is now booking tee times for 2024. We offer stay and play opportunities available with 9 area hotel partners. For more information, visit our website at millcreekmetroparks.org. Also, look for new, exciting opportunities coming soon, including an indoor player development center with Trackman, an indoor Callaway Club Fitting Center, and an Odyssey Fitting Studio in 2024. Follow us on Facebook at Milk Creek Golf Course or call 330-740-7112.
If you want to stay on top of your health, one simple thing to do
is take the pledge to go and get screened for the cancers that might affect you.
So stand up to cancer and take a pledge and
Get screennow.org. It only takes a minute to take care of yourself, and nothing rhymes with poor.
Talk to your doctor about your health and screenings that are right for you.
Saturday morning sports page, Pat, Lucia, Dave Clark. Fourth quarter of the show comes back. Western Reserve radio station you're listening to, 330-707-4202 to get in. We were talking a little off air, but Dennis Johnson was an intricate part of those Celtic teams back in the day with Bird, McHale. And we were trying, well, how did Dennis Johnson become a Celtic? Turns out he was with Phoenix at the time.
Yeah, that is right. And I don't even know how he got over it.
This is how he got over it to the Celtics. Again, Red Auerbach was just ahead of his time with trading. He swindled more.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
He was swindled teams. Again, Robert Parrish for Joe Barry Carroll.
Yeah, I'll never forget. And Joe Barry Carroll wasn't bad.
Joe Barry Carroll was bad, but
Parrish fit better for them.
And he was just an unbelievable. Dennis Johnson found his way to Boston because he clashed too much with the coach John McLeod. DJ evidently and John McLeod didn't get along. So finally, Jerry Colangelo traded him to Boston for Rick Roby and draft picks.
What? That is crazy.
I think that's highway robbery.
That's pure robbery. Yeah, that is. That's blatant
Rick Roby.
Daylight robbery right in front of you. Didn't even wear a mask.
No.
He just went and just took.
Yes, he did.
Perennial all-star.
Oh,
great
Hall of Famer.
Right out of for Rick Roby.
For Rick Roby.
Old Kentucky guy. They really didn't do much of anything.
No, in fact, the word was that they wanted to get rid of Roby because Roby was a bad influence on Bird. They were like, Roby wanted to go out all the time and he goes, they were afraid he was going to get Roby was going to get Bird into trouble.
Yeah.
So they were kind of, and Roby was an average. Come on, he was average at best.
Yeah, he was.
At best. He was
at best.
And I'm being nice. Yeah, we'll be nice. NBA, he was
serviceable. Let's use that
let's
one.
Be nice. Serviceable is probably
he
more
come in and give you 5 or 6 fouls, 7 fouls back then.
Back then, because they didn't call one.
That's all you use it for that.
Roby was a guy that could fill the center spot. I could look up his numbers, but come on.
Yeah, that's
They traded Rick Roby and draft picks for Dennis Johnson, man. And Johnson came right into the Celtics with that team with Bird, McHale, and Parrish. And that was the guy they needed.
It reminds
and Dennis
me.
Johnson was a smart player, a great player. He fit right in with the Celtics.
It just cracks me up. Certain teams, like even I used to get upset so bad, even when the Cleveland Cavaliers traded Kevin Johnson.
Yeah, that was to Phoenix. That was a bad trade.
I say, we got Mark Price. I don't care. Keep both of them.
No, you keep them both.
Keep both of those guys.
Oh, man.
You talking about a backer. Yeah, they're short.
No,
but these guys could be interchanged.
Yeah, you could.
And man, oh my.
82 games. Oh man.
Of them two?
Of those two guys.
Drove you nuts.
You were a coach. You'd love to have those two guys.
And Phoenix got, I think he got him for hardly nothing too.
No,
Kevin
you
Johnson.
have to look that up.
That's just all those kind of trades just get to
well, it's almost as bad as Walton, a great player. There was a time, this is what people don't realize, that Moses Malone and Walton were on the same team. Moses Malone was a Portland Trailblazer, and they practiced. And then the GM traded, because they didn't know much about Malone because he was for ABA. He came off the ABA, went to Buffalo. Buffalo collapsed, and he ended up with Portland for a bit. And Portland didn't know what to do with him because they had Walton.
Right.
So they just gave him and traded to Houston. And they were Walton and and Malone were practicing together, and they were like, the players were like, God, we're going to win we'll win titles with these two guys.
Right.
Because they work so well together. Because Malone was a passer, not a selfish player, and Walton was not either. Walton was a great passer and a great defender. But you thought, well, and then they thought, Portland, we don't need both of them. We'll give Malone. And they told Ramsey goes, what, you just traded Malone. I'm sitting there, I'm watching these guys practice. I'm thinking, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. I'm going to have playoff.
I used to like Jack Ramsey.
Oh, I love Jack Ramsey. He's a great guy.
But I remember they said he was hot that they did
that.
Yeah.
And he was like, what did you people, you're nuts. I had Moses Malone and Bill Walton on the same team. Are you kidding me? I mean, how did you, and then the sad part, Walton had all the injuries. Had they kept Malone,
kept winning.
They would have kept winning. Because if they would have as Walton went down with that knee injury, the foot injury in 78, they would have had Moses Malone to slide in.
Yeah. And I wonder.
They would have they would have probably won the title in 78.
Because he had some foot problems, but I wonder if those would have happened if you had both of them.
Well, you could have
spelled so much time.
Yeah, and there's a good point. The point on it is because Walton had all the foot problems. Had he not had the severe foot problems, if you kept Moses Malone, you could have given Bill Walton less minutes, maybe less wear and tear on the feet and ankles and knees. Maybe he doesn't get injured.
Right.
And then you've got Moses Malone there, who still another underrated people forget. You start talking about great centers. Moses Malone's name always gets pushed aside.
Don't even come up.
And he was by far one of the best centers ever. And he was 6'10", coming out of Maryland.
And who was stopping him?
Nobody.
That guy used to dominate. I mean, even Kareem have said it. He said, when I played against Moses, I couldn't stop that guy.
No.
Unstoppable. Score at will.
At will.
Block his shot. He was a great shot blocker.
Right. He was one of the rare players that came right out of high school, went right to the ABA. He was supposed to go to Maryland. Had the deal all worked out at Maryland, 74. He was coming out. I remember because I was a freshman. Moses Malone graduated 74 in high school, and everybody was going, what Moses coming out and all that chatter about how great he was. And then I remember he was on Sports Illustrated. He was driving a car and he got a car. It's cool. All of a sudden, Moses Malone going to Utah Stars, ABA.
Yep.
And what people don't realize, read a book, is Moses Malone grew up dirt poor.
Mm-hmm.
And he had he grew up very poor. And obviously Utah gave him all the money that he needed, went to the ABA. And the funny part was no one knew how good he was. He got into the ABA and was like an all-star. He was 19. Mm-hmm. And he was basically outplaying all the players in the ABA.
Right. Yep.
In those old early ABA games.
Yeah.
And don't ever underestimate the talent in the ABA was as good as the NBA talent.
Oh, yeah, back then. Yeah.
Back then it was.
Unbelievable talent. I mean, I could think of some of the teams this unbelievable talent.
They were.
When I think of Virginia Squires with Irvine.
Was Gervin on that team?
I thought it was Gervin. Yeah. Yes, he was. And I think Darnell Hillman too.
Hillman.
How's all of those guys on the same team? That's insane. But yeah. I'm almost certain Gervin, Irvin, and who else you said? Irvine. All those guys were on the same team.
That team, that Virginia Squire team, was really a great team.
Yep.
And they, at the end of the day, when you look at those teams in the old ABA, they were unbelievable. And those Kentucky Colonel teams, they had Dan Issel and Artis Gilmore.
Yeah.
On that one team that won it, and that would have been the 74.
And that's why Dan Issel was such a good shooter when he came in the NBA, playing center a lot, because he really played more forward with Artis Gilmore there.
Yeah, he did.
And his great outside shooting.
And he developed the shot.
Then he became a problem in the NBA because they couldn't guard him as a center. He pulls them out. He's hitting those shots.
Hitting those shots.
Then when they come out on him, he blow right past him. I remember those teams. Oh,
those teams were through the roof.
Kentucky Colonel. I still remember them. Yes.
Yep. I do too.
Yep.
I really do. I think, like I said, the sad part, Walton had the injuries. He could have been one of the greatest centers ever to play in the NBA. He really only had 3 solid years of greatness in the NBA because he was hurt all those other years. At college, he was through the roof. Walton was, again, the second, in my eyes, the second best. Kareem and Walton number 2.
Mm-hmm.
But that 77 team that won the title, he swept
the Sixers.
And he beat the Sixers in 6 games. He swept the Lakers in the conference finals Anyway, the difference, they were talking a little bit about it. Portland had Maurice Lucas as the power forward enforcer.
Yeah.
The Lakers had, what was his name? Don Ford.
Yeah.
He was the power forward. He says
that the coach used to be coach of the Celtics. That didn't they have?
No. That wasn't him. That was Chris Ford. That was Chris Ford. No, he was an average player.
I can't even remember that Ford.
No, you wouldn't. Nobody would.
I can't.
No, he was. I'll look him up, but he was
supposed to be the enforcer for.
He was. Yeah, he was. I mean, he's like, he was an average player. He was like 6'9".
They probably threw him around.
No, Maurice Lucas. Forget it. It wasn't fair.
Yeah, no, because
and that
Lucas
70
scored too.
Right, and the 77. People forget that 77 Trailblazer team was really good. Underrated. Johnny Davis, Twardzik.
Yeah.
I mean, they had some underrated players that you didn't hear of.
Right.
And they had, what's his name? I got to look it up. But they were, that Portland Trailblazer team Walton was on. And Walton was a great facilitator and he was a great player. But that was a good team that won it. They had like Corky Calhoun coming off the bench. Johnny Davis, he played out at Dayton.
Number 16. I still remember him.
Johnny Davis.
Speed.
He was at the time, he was like only 20. He was like 22 or 21. He was 21 years old when he won the title. Herm Gilliam was the guard out of Purdue. They called him the trickster because he was always like making shots, defense. Bobby Gross, Lionel Hollins was on that team.
See, and he was the guard.
He was the guard.
Number
Lionel
9.
Hollins
I still remember him.
Right, he was only
all-star.
And Lionel Hollins at that time was only 22 years old.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, was he? Yeah, no, I take it back. He would have been 20. Lionel Hollins would have been 23. But then they had a young team. Then Maurice Lucas was the enforcer. Lloyd Neal was the other guy coming off the bench, 6'7". He was really good. He went to Tennessee State. Larry Steele out of Kentucky. Wally Walker,
I remember
rookie, good player. And then obviously Walton. But Walton was back then, Bill Walton. This is the scary part. People don't realize Bill Walton would have been like 24 years old when he won that title. But that was a young heart team.
Yeah.
And you could see, and when I'm looking at that roster, all those guys were relatively young.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have won multiple titles had Walton stayed healthy or they kept Moses Malone instead of giving him to Houston.
Yeah.
I still can't believe when I read that. It was in a book by David Halberstam, Breaks of the Game, talking about most people don't realize Moses Malone and Bill Walton were practicing on the same court together, and they were like freaking out.
They said that it's sad about Portland because they said it was so much friction in their draft room when they took Clyde Drexler.
Yeah,
they took Clyde Drexler, and the next season was Jordan, right?
Yeah,
or it wasn't the same season. It was the next season.
Then they took Bowie.
Yeah, and Sam Bowie. Yep, and
Bowie.
And the thing about it, they said it was so much friction because they said they didn't care about Bowie being a center. Take Jordan regardless because they felt that those two guys could be interchangeable at small forward and guard. It can interchange. They could just play on court. They're two great basketball players, speed, score, can do all kind of things. They can be the NBA's fly, what was they called? Houston college scene, Phi Gamma. They could have been them.
Yeah.
And they didn't take him. They took Sam Bowie.
No, they took, right, because in 83, they took Clyde Drexler, round number 1, 14th overall in 80. Right. In 83. In 84 was Jordan.
Right. I would have took him.
And right, they felt that Jordan and Drexler were the same player.
Yep.
So they passed on
said a bunch of people was in there saying, no, they're not the same player.
No, he's not. Right. Drexler was more the small forward. Jordan was the guard. But
they would have been the Pippen and Jordan before there was a
Pippen and Jordan. That was it.
Would have been because Drexler could play defense.
Yes.
And you get them both together, they both play defense.
Yep.
Portland would have been
to this
unbelievable.
Day, that will haunt the Portland Trailblazers forever.
Yeah.
That was, you want to talk about the biggest screw-ups in history. That's got to be number 1.
Yeah, I think so.
You talked yourself out of Michael Jordan because you were convinced that Drexler and Jordan were close to the same player, and they were not.
Right.
The second screw-up, maybe not the second, but one of the ones, is Malone and thinking Malone and Walton evidently couldn't play together. So you gave him away.
Yeah.
I have to look.
Yeah.
It was mind-boggling what they did with Moses Malone. Because Moses Malone was like, well, they didn't know he was ABA. The ABA dispersed, so they didn't know what to do with these players. So he was with Buffalo. Then Buffalo went under, and then he ended up with Portland, and then he ended up with Houston.
Yeah, because what year did that come in? Buffalo.
That would have been 70. The 76 was the last year
of Buffalo, right?
Yeah. It was
because they had Bob McAdoo before Moses, right?
Oh yeah. McAdoo was on those Buffalo teams before that.
Yeah, and then they got him, but then like you said, they I think
the team went under.
Yeah, they went under,
and they moved the teams. They moved the team to Clip. They became the San Diego Clippers.
Right. Yep.
But they were in Buffalo. And I know Buffalo was having all kinds of problems. They ultimately, I'll do more, but all I remember was that Malone was a Buffalo Brave because of the dispersal draft, and then they got rid of him because maybe they didn't want to pay him, and they were going through transition. It said here, before the first game of the season, this is 76-77, the Braves had managed to acquire Hall of Famer Malone from they got him from Portland. I got it the other way around.
Okay.
So actually, I thought the Braves, he was with Portland, and then Portland gave him to Buffalo, not the other way around.
But he still was there with
But he was with Bill Walton in Portland. They just gave him to Buffalo, and then Buffalo ultimately gave him to Houston, and they sent him to Houston for 2 draft picks. So Buffalo had Moses Malone, and then 2 games into it, they traded him. But he was with Portland, and then I made a mistake. He went from Portland to Buffalo. I thought it was the other way around. But anyway, he was with Bill Walton in Portland because I remember reading that in the book.
Now that is still dumb.
That's what I mean. That's, again, we're talking about dumb, decisions. I know it's easy to go back and second guess people.
And but some of them don't get the second guess because you've seen how great the guy was. Right. You already seen it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, he's coming from college. We don't know exactly. He's done played pro ball against pro players.
Right.
And dominated at a young age. He should be pretty good with our guy.
Well, you know what it was too back then? A large part of it is the NBA did not respect the ABA players.
Oh yeah, I know that.
They did not. I read that in many books.
Yeah,
they felt the ABA was inferior league, that the players weren't that good, and they were dead wrong.
Yeah, and I don't understand how they do that because they see what they brought to the table. They were almost like the AFL was to the NFL. They were competing.
No, they were competing.
And they know they were competing. They know they were a problem to the NBA because of the flair and the way they played.
The only reason why, not to get off track here, because I want to talk, The only reason why the AFL and NFL merged had nothing to do with the money. AFL had their contract. The NBC contract got the teams. There were a couple, few teams before the contract were struggling, but everybody chipped in to keep the struggling teams solvent. They got the NBC TV contract. They were set.
Right.
And Al Davis didn't want to merge.
No,
because Al was the Maverick.
Yep.
He said, "No, we're better." The only reason why they merged is because they didn't want to get into bidding on the players and drive salaries up.
Yeah.
So the NFL and AFL merged because of they didn't want to see salaries start to escalate
like we got now.
Exactly. Now, right. Exactly. Right. Now.
Maybe it came earlier than this, but I don't know. But regardless, they are driven to the moon. So I did get, well, I know you want to talk about something.
No, go ahead.
The only thing I was going to mention this past week.
Yes.
I went up to my brother's and was able to be up there in Cleveland for a little bit. And he took me down to see the Browns. They had open media day and they practiced just to see them look how they look. You can see those guys excited about their team. Got to see Deshaun Watson throw the football too.
Yeah.
And it looked like he could, but they won't let him just rip it. They don't want him to do that. They don't want to try
do the number on the arm.
Yeah, but he was throwing some deep outs and different things. Looked pretty decent. But it, through that, I was reading something while I was up there. They said that the guy has to quit pressing. He's trying to impress Cleveland and everybody that he's the same guy from Houston. Whereas Cecil Shorts and J.J. Watt said when he was in Houston, he was a laid-back guy that knew, I'm not going to force the game. I let the game come to me, and I make plays with the game. He said, I run out, I check down, I do whatever I need to do to make the plays. And you think about it and say, yeah, his game was great at Houston like that. But in Cleveland, it seemed like, I got to get it downfield. I got to make this play. I got to make these great plays. And it's not working. If he can settle down and be the guy that he was and just let the game come to him, I think that's going to be a big difference in
with them. You're right.
And Chubb was on the side doing some stuff, just some little things. He's going to play sometime this season, I bet. I don't know when. Yeah, I think he's going to sometime this season. Now, will they keep him? If he's productive, anywhere near his production, they're going to re-sign. They're going to extend him.
Yeah, if he's 80% or close to that, I think they got to keep him.
Yeah, they're going to extend him
because he could still be different. He could still do something in the back.
Just wanted to throw that stuff.
No, good.
I was kind of like shocked. I've seen that.
Just real brief, then we get back to that. But now the reason why they say the Blazers traded Malone, they got him in the dispersal draft.
Okay.
They actually selected him 5th overall pick. But they had also acquired Maurice Lucas in the draft. Okay. So then they decide they sit this thing through and they go, well, we have the front line of Lucas, Bill Walton, and Lloyd Neal. So we really don't need Malone. So they traded him to Buffalo. He played 2 games and then they shipped him off to Houston. But I thought to myself, Lloyd Neal was a good player. He wasn't Moses Malone.
Moses Malone.
No.
Lloyd Neal been gone.
Right.
Yeah.
If you had any, but I think a lot of this goes back to he was an ABA guy not getting the respect because he was an ABA guy. I think that had to filter into it. But you think a minute, if it's almost like the Drexler thing with, no, we can't have Michael Jordan because we have Clyde Drexler. Okay.
Same player.
No. Look, if you would have had Moses Malone and Bill Walton and Maurice Lucas as your frontline starter, that would be a living nightmare.
Right.
Because and I know Bill Walton and because Walton was a great facilitator and he could play with anybody.
Right.
And make anybody better. And Malone was kind of the same way.
Yeah.
But could you see Walton and Malone together?
Yeah. I don't know how you stop that.
You couldn't.
No.
And then, like I said, if you knew Walton with the foot and you could have cut his minutes down and you could have put Walton and Malone in kind of a 2-headed monster, kept Lloyd Neal.
Yeah, you can.
You could still keep him. You didn't have to, This is we see this time and time again. teams overthink stuff. Yeah. They just overthink this crap too much.
Yeah.
They overanalyze it and take it face value.
Right. Yep.
Like Jordan. Take him.
Right. I think about the Celtics not overthinking things.
No.
Now, something that didn't happen for him, the man died, and Len Bias, but the time they drafted him, they still had McHale.
Right.
They had Bird.
Yeah.
I think they still had Maxwell. If I'm not mistaken, he might have been gone, but I know they had front court guys, and it was like, I don't care. We still drafted Len Bias.
And a lot of that was Auerbach. See, Red Auerbach, that's why Red Auerbach was so smart.
Yeah, he didn't care about that.
Because he
overloaded.
Right. He figured, hey, get me the talent. I'll make it work.
And people don't know how good Len Bias was. Me, was a combination of Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan.
Yeah, it was.
Because he did the same thing.
He did.
He dominated sometimes against North Carolina.
The same player.
Against Jordan. He used to try to get Jordan to guard. Couldn't guard him.
No. That's one of the saddest things.
Yeah, one of the saddest things ever.
If Bias doesn't have the death, the ultimate tragic, untimely death, he would have been
on that Celtic
team. Because then he could have bridged it with Bird, McHale, and he would have learned under Bird, McHale, and then he would have been their future.
And much longer would have Bird played now with this time to be able to rest?
Bird might have had a couple extra years out of his back
because of that.
Because he retired at the age of 35, 30. He was about done. 30. Now, he was pretty much done with the bad back, but maybe he would have given you a couple more extra years.
He might not have played as many minutes and as many games and stuff or different things.
Yeah, Cedric Maxwell was on the team in 85.
Yeah,
you might have kept him another year because they ultimately went to the LA Clippers. But the point is, Maxwell could have, helped bring Bias along,
right?
And develop. And Bias could have really developed as a great player under the Celtics.
And they already had all these forwards,
raw, unbelievable talent. Lenny Bias was just,
and all what Auerbach going to do, he's going to round it and mold it,
because he was
the limits. Oh my God!
Drexler and Jordan not the same players.
No,
we've got that figured out.
That's for sure.
Saturday morning sports page. Do not drink, do not drive, stay safe, and buckle up. We'll do it again next week. Pat Lucia, Dave Clark, Western Reserve Radio.
You're listening to WRDB, Western Reserve Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, Warren, Salem, and around the world.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Stormy Bonatoni, on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome in to Hour 2 on this Thursday edition of the Lombardi Line. The show, as always, presented by DraftKings. We're live on VSiN, and we welcome in our DraftKings Network audience alongside Michael Lombardi. Stormy Bonatoni with you. Lots to get to over the course of the next hour. It's Thursday, which means it's a no way, no doubt day. Always fun to go through that segment. We've got another edition of Gridiron Goldilocks and great friend of the show, Captain Kirk Cousins. I mean, not Kirk Cousins. Oh my gosh, see, that got crazy. Kirk Morrison. But see, I go through my head, Michael. Kirk Morrison is going to join us in 30 minutes. Excited to get his thoughts on the NFL offseason, and a former Raider, his thoughts on Antonio Pierce. He also works for the Rams, covers that team very closely, his evaluation of the NFC West and what the Rams could do this year. But where we're going to start is an update on the poll that we put out on your Twitter, Michael. So if those of you want to vote, haven't voted yet, go over there right now at @MLombardi NFL on X. We want to know on the Lombardi Line who's the biggest threat to the Kansas City Chiefs to three-peat, because Michael put an article up at vsin.com this week on whether or not the Kansas City Chiefs can do it. So far, it's the San Francisco 49ers in the lead at 35.9% of the vote, followed by the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals. Buffalo not getting a whole lot of love here. And this is over 1,500 votes now in pocket. So I feel like this is a pretty good representative sample of what people think might happen this postseason, Michael. The 49ers in the front running spot.
Why do you think the Bills aren't getting much action? I mean, look, the Bills, they gave 2 games away to the Chiefs. You know, the 13-second game was just so bad, right? And then last year, they had every opportunity to win the game. They missed a 44-yard kick into the windy part of the field. If you go back and watch that game, Bass almost missed the opening field goal, which was at that end of the stadium. It was a chip shot, and he kind of wobbled and just got in there. But they had a chance to win that game. They just stopped. They stalled off in the red zone a couple times, and then they couldn't move the ball once they got into Kansas City territory and had to settle for a 44-yarder. I just think people must think Buffalo is going through some changes defensively, which they are, without Hyde, without Poyer. Where's Milano? Can he stay healthy for an entire year? Who's going to be, we know Von Miller hasn't played well in 2 years. So